Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures, Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, Exploring Mexico's Biodiversity, Part 3, presented by NatHab Expedition Leader Melissa Silva. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you all so much for being here today. Over to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Very happy to be with you again. So, very quick on me to start. I'm a marine biologist. I was living in Puerto Vallarta city in the Pacific coast of Mexico until 2.5 years ago, more or less. Nowadays, I'm living in Mexico City, but I also lived in the Yucatan Peninsula for about 2 years or almost 3 years for a master's degree. So this the webinar I will show you today has a little bit of the places I visited. So it's something very exciting for me, and I'm very happy for of showing you this today. So let's just go quick on what biodiversity means. We have different meanings or different concepts that we can have for biodiversity. We can talk about genetic diversity or species or ecological diversity and some other themes or subtopics under this. So in general terms, genetic diversity is the diversity of genes that are within one species. So let's say the subspecies or the varieties of one species, of one given species. In this case, I have these three examples. The potatoes, for example, in Peru is the country that has the most, the highest number of potatoes. They are tubercles. They are basically the same species, but they are different varieties. So there's a wide range of subspecies. Of genetic diversity. Mexico, on the other hand, for example, has a wide diversity of corns, of maize. So that's another type of genetic diversity. And well, one of the easiest ways to see in clearly is the different types of dogs. They are one same species, but all the different characteristics is all the genetic pool that is expressing. So you will see the same genes in a Chihuahua and in a Great Dane, but the expression of those genes is what gives us the diversity. Then when we talk about species diversity, we can focus, for example, in one given ecosystem. In this case, I have the example of the Mexican seas, the ocean around Mexico. So for example, on the Caribbean, we have a diversity of corals, of mollusks, fish, of course. And then on the Pacific, we also have a diversity of reptiles or in this case, sharks, for example. So all of this is the species diversity of a given ecosystem. And when we talk about ecological diversity, is all the ecosystems that we can find in a certain area. So in this case, for example, once again, taking Mexico as an example, I have these three different ecosystems that are found within the boundaries of the country. So it's very contrasting that gives us a high diversity in terms of ecosystem. So as I said, Mexico is a very diverse country in terms of life. It is now thought that it hosts about 12% of all the species that are alive nowadays. Those are about 108,000 of them. And together with other 16 countries in the world, most of them within the tropics, as you can see in this little map, they have between 60 and 70% of all the biodiversity that we have nowadays. So, well, that's why there's a lot to see and a lot to talk about Mexico's biodiversity. So why we are so diverse? Well, because we are in the transition zone between the tropic, the Cancer tropic. So we have some tropical regions and some Nearctic regions. So we have like cold and dry on the north and warm and wet on the south, and this transition zone in the middle with a lot of mountains. And this gives us about 8 different ecosystems, 7 to 8, and they distribute mostly due to the latitude. Also, we have all these plates that form the country and give us the topography and the geography of the country. So due to that, we have a certain some sierras, a certain group of sierras, and we also have something that we call the plains. We have central plains and we have also coastal plains. In this webinar, I'm going to be focused on the Gulf Plain because it's the one that we missed on the past two. So it's a very interesting area. And we're gonna check this is the 5 states on the Gulf and Caribbean and Mexican Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico and Mexican Caribbean. So going into this, Veracruz state, right below Tamaulipas, very close to Texas also. On the Gulf of Mexico, it is a state with a lot of history, a lot of culture. On the top left, right here, you can see the San Juan de Ulúa fort or San Juan de Ulúa is the prison. So this comes back from the colonial times, from the very beginning when the Spaniards arrived to Mexico. They founded Veracruz city, and right in front of Veracruz city is this fort that we can consider this like a Mexican Alcatraz, more or less. It's an island that has the function of being, first it was a fort for protection in this port, but later it became a prison. We have a lot of culture, we have a lot of pre-Hispanic representations. We have some other more like modern times Hispanic mix representations. And Veracruz is #2 in the production of coffee in Mexico. So if you have the chance to get some coffee from Veracruz, do it because they have very good practices, sustainable practices, and they actually host around 80 the cafetales, the coffee farms. They host about 60 to 70% of the biodiversity in the highlands of Veracruz. So it's something very, very good to know. So as you can see in this map, remember that we are in this union of plates, of the tectonic plates. So we have the Trans-Mexican Volcanic Belt from west to south to east, a little bit to the south on the central part of Mexico. And Veracruz's part still gets a little bit of those volcanoes that we have in the Trans-Mexican Volcanic Belt. So specifically the San Martin Tuxtla volcano and the Pico de Orizaba and Los Humeros volcanoes. So those three are considered like the active volcanoes, but the most popular of those in this area is the Pico de Orizaba, the Citlantepetl. This is the highest peak in Mexico, the highest volcano. And the park, the national park that is around the volcano, hosts around 40 endemic vertebrate species. So it might not sound a lot, but for the dimensions of the area and the location of the park, it is a very big number because it's very close to big cities. You can see actually some of the houses right here on the corner of the image. So very close to the park, there are urban centers. One of those endemic vertebrates is this bearded wood partridge, this bird right here. And if you remember on one of my previous webinars, I mentioned Mexico hosts #1 on pine endemics. So this, the Abies hickeli, is an endemic fir in this area of the Pico de Orizaba. So it's only found around this place in Mexico. So Veracruz is also a very important archaeological site, a very important center of development for the first cultures of Mexico. One area that I consider very beautiful is El Tajín with this pyramid. It is thought to be used to count or to serve as a calendar, a solar calendar, because it has 365 niches in here. So this is still not very well like settled or said what this was for, but in general terms, that's what most of the archaeologists tell, that it was made for a system of solar calendar. In the southern area of Veracruz, we find what we call the Olmec area, where the Olmec civilization was settled, and it is considered one of the first or the founders of the Mexican civilization, or the Mexican mix that we had back on the day when we had the original pre-Hispanic civilization. So this is a this civilization, the Olmecs, were are known for these big colossal heads that are here on the right. I will show you another one in a moment. But they are also well known for being one of the most prolific producers of gum and jade stone as well. The Tres Zapotes archaeological site is one of the most impressive due to the intricate constructions, the pyramids or castles that are in this area. And well, if you want to know more about the Olmec culture and the colossal heads, Google Dr. Anne-Marie Cyphers from the UNAM, National Autonomous University of Mexico, because there's so much information and it's so like mind-blowing, because there are some people say that there might be some connection between the African cultures and the Mesoamerican cultures due to the shape of the colossal heads, the faces that they present. But she has some very interesting information just to check that it's actually ancient kings from the Olmecs. Well, that's what they represent. So take a look on her research. This head that you can see in this image here is the biggest one that has been found so far. We have found 17 Olmec colossal heads, and this one is the biggest one. You can see the comparison with this farmer here, this indigenous people from Veracruz, and it weighs 50 tons, and it is 11 feet high. So just so you have an idea of how massive these are. So very close to Tres Zapotes, still in the Veracruz state, we have the Papaloapan River. I consider this to be one of the most amazing rivers in Mexico. It's actually the second largest, the second longest, and the second in terms of cubic metrics of water. So the first one is the Usumacinta River in the border of Guatemala and Mexico. And this is the second one that is right above it on the north of the Gulf. I remember passing by this on car on this bridge, and it was just amazing. I mean, I don't have words to describe that, because the amount of water and the beauty of the place. The name of Papaloapan means river of butterflies, and on the sides of the river you can see thousands of butterflies of every color flying around. So it's something really, really beautiful. And well, the Papaloapan River starts on the high mountains in Veracruz, in the border of Veracruz and Oaxaca. And one of the representative species of the area is the Mexican black agouti, and that's considered a native species, not endemic. Remember, endemic means that you only find that species in that specific area, and native means that is from the place. The origin of the species is in that place. So is native from this area, but is distributed all the way up down to Central America. Okay, so from Veracruz we go a little bit to the southeast, of the Gulf, and we find Tabasco state. And here I want to just tell you a little bit about the mangrove. The mangrove ecosystem is, let's say, it's kind of like a forest on the coast, on the edge of the continent. But you only find this in tropic waters. And you usually found this only in brackish water or salty water or seawater. So in Tabasco, we have this very special area. So we have the Gulf of Mexico here, we have the coast, we have a lot of mangrove on all this area, in Campeche, the Laguna de Terminos area. But then this is the Usumacinta River that I was mentioning. And in this area here, you can notice it's far away from the coast. We have some inland mangroves. And this is something just amazing that I found out about 1 month ago, because they just released the article, the research article in August 21. So this is something very, very new. So it turns out that from the last ice age, a little bit before the last ice age, we had the sea level coming, like basically covering all Tabasco, coming all the way over here and getting the coastline by this area, by the Rio San Pedro. And because of that, there was the chance of for the mangroves to settle in this area that back on the day was brackish water, was seawater basically, all of this. So as the ice age finished and we had the sea level going down, we found that these mangroves just stood there adapted to be in this area. The farthest region in the mangrove area here in Tabasco is about 186 yards away from the coast. This is 170 kilometers. So this is this area that is marked like right next to Guatemala, very close to Guatemala. And the closest one is around 373 feet, which is like right here, nearby a city, a town named Balancan. So this is something very, very amazing, because these mangroves adapted to be in fresh water. So they still don't know how they did that. They have an hypothesis that all this water, due to the characteristics of the soil in the peninsula, all this water has a high concentration of minerals, specifically calcium. So that the mangrove adapted to take the mangrove for the physiological needs instead of the salt from the seawater. So here, this is a very representative image, because you can see around this area, we have this fisherman here. All this water is fresh water. All this grass, you can see, is grass adapted to fresh water. We can have some lilies here. Those are totally freshwater plants. And then in the center of the photo, and on the back over here behind the head of the fisherman, we find some mangroves. You can see they are very tiny. Some of them lost their leaves because, well, they just are adapting to this area, and people is using these lands for crops. So there's some modification on the soil, and this is what we see in the river. The species that we find in the San Pedro Martir River is the red mangrove, and this is the species that usually is in the water, in the seawater, when you are on the coast, in these tropical areas where we find the mangrove. So it's something very, very amazing. I'm planning on having a webinar to talk about only mangroves and this specific area as well, but in general terms, the importance of mangroves in the coastline is to prevent the erosion of the coast, is to prevent the storms or the waves to hit the coast with all the strength. And it's also, we call it a nursery for the marine species. A lot of shrimps and fish, they go there, lay their eggs, or when they are larvae, they swim in and they develop in the middle of these roots. Inland, in this specific area, what the scientists have found is that they storage a huge amount of carbon dioxide, and they also host other plants that are associated to the coast. So let's say it's a ecosystem, it's a coastal ecosystem, but away from the coast. So that's why it's so amazing, this discovery. Okay, so from Tabasco we move to the Yucatan Peninsula. Let me just explain you a little bit of the Yucatan Peninsula, because it's a very different area, very with some characteristics that are very contrasting to other places in Mexico and basically in the world. Mm, So the Yucatan Peninsula used to be underwater hundreds of or millions of years ago in the time of the Earth. So all of these used to be a platform that was the home of a lot of coral reefs. So with the movements of the tectonic plates and the changes in the water level, in the sea level, it came out of the ocean, but it's now what we call as karstic platform. A karstic platform is a soil that is made out mostly of limestone and seashell, coralline, coralline bed. So it's all the seashells that are going like a sediment, one over the other. They compact together. So at the end, all of the soil here is very porous, and it dissolves very easily with the rain and with the waves on the coast. So due to this characteristic of having like holes, basically like a sponge, all of this, it has a lot of holes and very porous. It filters all the water from the rain. So basically we don't have rivers on these northern areas of the Yucatan Peninsula, the lowlands of the Yucatan Peninsula. And most of the water that we find here is in something that is called cenote, that I'll go a little bit deeper in a moment. And most of the land is either sea level or a little bit below sea level. So it's divided basically in these three states: the Campeche, Yucatan, and Quintana Roo states. And this is something very, very beautiful to mention. In all this area, the Mayan influence, there is this tree named Yaxche, which is actually the kapok tree, and it is considered to be the tree of life here for the Mayans, because due to the formation that it has, it represented the whole universe, the whole Mayan universe. So in the center, it's the humans and everything that is physic here. On top, the canopy of this tree will represent the the heavens, or the area where the gods are, the good gods are, let's say, those that provide rain, that provide food, good hunting. And then all the roots will represent the Xibalba, or the underworld. It's not a hell per se, but it's more like the places where our souls go to rest before coming back whenever it's time, or when the gods decide for us to come back. So it's something very beautiful that all the Yucatan Peninsula basically have in common due to the Mayan influence. Okay, so the Campeche state right here by the Gulf of Mexico. It only has a coast on the Gulf of Mexico. And there is this beautiful place named Laguna de Terminos. You can see it's a pretty huge estuarine lagoon. That means that it's brackish water more than fresh water. And this is around 2,700 square miles in total. And due to the characteristics and the place where it is located, most of this is surrounded, of course, by mangrove, by estuaries. And it's the lagoon is home for about 500 bottlenose dolphins. Of course, it's a population that is moving in and out, going to the Gulf of Mexico and coming back, but it's one of the highest bottlenose dolphin populations in Mexico, and according to the researchers, is one of the healthiest as well. Other representative fauna on the Laguna de Terminos are the crocodiles. There are plenty over there, and well, they lived together with bunch of birds, both migratory and all year birds, local birds. There are some registers in the area of jaguar. Of course, is part of the distribution places for jaguars, and some deers as well, white-tailed deers. If we go in north of the Yucatan Peninsula, we find the Yucatan state, the one that gives name to the peninsula. And this is what I was mentioning, the cenotes. So the cenotes are thought to be made after the impact of a meteorite that killed the one that supposedly led to the death of all the dinosaurs. So that's what I just say, like, bye-bye dinosaurs and hello cenotes. But I won't go deep on this one because I actually have a webinar talking about the cenotes. You can go on nathave.com and traveler resources, and then go to webinars, daily dose of nature, and then there's another section that is watch past webinars. You will find plenty of webinars from all my co-workers around the world, and right there is where you can find the webinar about the cenotes. So what I'm going to talk about in Yucatan is a place named Las Coloradas, right on the north of Yucatan, very close to what is the Quintana Roo area and the Caribbean Sea. And Las Coloradas is nothing more than all these ponds that are used to take salt from the seawater. But well, it's a beautiful scenery. You can see there are pinkish waters, red water, bright pink. But it's forbidden to swim there because they has a high concentration of salt. Here you can see the salt extraction area, and well, it's mostly just for view rather than for swimming. Right next to Las Coloradas, if you remember the map, it's a biosphere reserve named Ria Lagartos. Instead of Rio, like river, we call it Ria. The name is Ria because it's a kind of like a Spanish influence in this name. A lot of Rias in Spain that are basically like this kind of things, a river flooding areas. So they name it because of that. And lagartos, well, I think you can guess that there were plenty of crocodiles in the area. But both Las Coloradas and Real Lagartos is they are home for the flamingo, the Caribbean flamingo. And as you can see, the flamingos are right here feeding by the salt area. You can see all the salt dunes and the white sand dunes, and they are feeding all around the place. But then also other two representative species of Ria lagartos specifically are the northern tamandua, that is an anteater, and this turkey, that is a wild turkey. They actually call it pavo de monte, like hill or turkey from the hills. And it's the ocellated turkey. You can see very bright colors on the males. So, well, due to the ecosystem that they have in this area, they are home to these very precious animals. And then the Quintana Roo state, right here by the Caribbean, totally. And of course, this is very well known for being the home of these super international well-known touristic centers, Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Tulum. So I basically just put this down here because I'm pretty sure you have heard of those. Some of you have come to these places. They are beautiful places, very important in terms of economics, of course, and in terms of history as well, and of course biodiversity. But let me tell you about the capital city of Chetumal that I consider is a must when you visit the peninsula. It's one of the most beautiful places I've been in Mexico. It has a little bit of everything. It has a lot of culture. It has a lot of biodiversity, and it offers a wide variety of museums, for example, and it's right next by the ocean, and is not as crowded as Cancun or Tulum, for example. And right next to Chetumal, we find a place named Bacalar. That is a little bit more touristic than other places around, but it's also a beautiful, beautiful area. This is a system of 7 lagoons, and they usually have, the colors vary during the year because of the algae that are present here, or the rains or the currents that are coming, because this is also an estuarine lagoon. So that's why we have sometimes green, sometimes blue, and sometimes we have brown color in these waters, but it's a beautiful place to visit. And nearby there are some Mayan archaeological sites that are also worth to visit. One representative species of this area is the Mexican howler monkey, and there are some other monkeys in the area, like the spider monkey as well. And something important to mention is that monkeys in Mexico are only presented in this area. We don't have monkeys on any other forest of Mexico, any other jungle of Mexico, because well, they don't have enough food to survive in any other place rather than here in the peninsula, the Yucatan Peninsula. So basically that's it. Any questions? So we have time for something extra.
All right, thank you so much. Now, before we start in with the question and answer session, I would like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the question field in your control panel. All right, so is it thought that the 11-foot high Olmec head was carved in place, or was it moved there from somewhere else?
Well, supposedly they say that they put these in some canoes and move them through the rivers of the area. But as I was saying, Dr. Anne, she was saying that some of them were carved like right next to the place where they were settled on the last moment. And according to her research, they used to be thrones. So there used to be like huge monolithic thrones, seats for the king of the region. And after his death, they carved the head kind of like a memorial, or like the tomb, or the tombstone of the king. And then some of them were moved, I think the medium and the small ones, but some others were just like trapped in the place and left there.
All right, thank you. So do the monarch butterflies also congregate along the Papaloapan River?
No, despite that, the monarch butterflies only are found on the central part of Mexico. Let me show you here. Only in this region. They just congregate here. For the monarch butterfly, we have local populations. That means that there are groups of monarchs that don't migrate at all. So we can find monarch anywhere in Mexico. We can actually find them in Hawaii. We can find them in Australia. But they don't migrate as the way they do in North America, like the ones that come all the way from southern Canada, the States, and they arrive here. So we might I have seen, for example, monarch butterflies in Puerto Vallarta in the Pacific coast, and I have seen monarch butterflies in Mexico City out of the season, let's say, not in winter. So those are local individuals. They are born, they hatch here, and they die here. They don't migrate anywhere, but like the neighborhood. So no, they don't congregate as much as they do in here.
Great, thank you for addressing that. So is sisal still a major crop in the northern Yucatan, or have the fields been converted to soybean?
No, it's no major crop now. We do have some haciendas, some farming areas of sisal, but it's not the way it used to be. Uh, Actually, I was living in Sisal town when I was living here in the Yucatan Peninsula, and yeah, I mean the area was known to be this rich. They actually call it the green gold to the sisal crops, to the agave that give us the sisal ropes. But no, nowadays we don't have that many production. There are still some. I think in Africa is where uh, I think it was Ivory Coast. I don't remember exactly what area on Africa, but they have the number one is the amount of production of sisal nowadays.
Okay, great, thank you. Is the Tenarondo a relative of the anteater or tapir?
The tapir,
The
which one?
Tenarondo, is it related?
The this tapir, oh, this no, they are not related. The tapir and the tamandua. Well, this is an anteater. So this, of course, is on the family of the Pilosa. It's called Pilosa family. It is not very closely related to the tapir, although they seem very similar, but they are like second degree cousins, let's say.
Gotcha, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So has anybody tried to measure how loud the howler monkeys get? Do we know how many decibels they make?
I'm pretty sure they have measured that. I don't have the exact number right now, but yeah, there are a lot of studies on their callings. Of course, it's as any other monkey, mating callings, warning callings. So yeah, they have done some research, but I don't have that exact number right now. Sorry.
No worries, thank you. So when the hurricanes do hit the Yucatan Peninsula, are cenotes badly damaged during that?
Not really. Yeah, incredibly, they are not. Um, mm, 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 mm. Let me show you like here. Okay, so the cenotes, there is something that is called the ring of cenotes right here on the top of the peninsula, and there are cenotes all over this place. They are not right next to the coastline, but they are like inland. They are well, inland like 4 kilometers. What are those? Like 6 miles in no like 3 miles inland. Um, so what they get from the hurricanes is actually a lot of rain in all this area. So their water levels rise. They don't get like damage. They do have a little bit of extra erosion due to this. And what what I consider, what I can consider that gets a little bit more damage is the connection that some of them have with the ocean. So let's say that there is this whole inland, and then there is a tunnel underground filled with water. It can be with the fresh water or seawater or a mix. And then when we have all the waves coming because of the hurricane, there might be some movement in that specific area, in the tunnel that is connecting the cenote outside to the ocean. So that would be, let's say, like the only area that gets more affected by a hurricane. So in general terms, the cenote itself doesn't really gets damaged. Like this, for example, this used to be a cenote, but right next to Bacalar, and the ocean is like on the distance on the horizon, and this doesn't get like any other thing rather than extra fresh water from the hurricanes.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to those huge head carvings again. Do we know how old they are? And do we know if the culture that made them are an offshoot of the Mayan culture?
No, the culture that made them is the Olmec, civilization, Olmecs, and it is thought that they are at least 3,000 years old. So it's like 1,000 before our common area. So the Mayans, of course, being so close to the Mayan region, they did have some sort of trading and exchange, like cultural exchange, but specifically all the carvings are totally Olmec style. So that's how they know they are just like part of the Olmec civilization. So they were not carved by the Mayans. There are some things that are that have certain Mayan influence as well as some certain the Aztec influence as well on the very last days. Not Aztec, Toltec influence. So, but yeah, in just to go to the point, they don't have any Mayan origin.
Great, thank you. So is the Maya train, has that affected or changed any of the tourist areas because of its route?
Mm-hmm. So the Mayan train is going to be, well, I need a little bit more on this area, but it's going to be all this way down here and then coming down here. So this is Quintana Roo, the Campeche, Tabasco, some parts of Chiapas, and going to up north to Tabasco, some areas of Tabasco, and then coming back. Actually, what I've seen is that a lot of people, for example, let's talk specifically about this region of the inland mangroves. Supposedly, the train is going to pass by Tenosique or nearby Tenosique in Tabasco, somewhere like here, down here, and then Chiapas, and then coming back north, something like that. So the people on this area, the researchers that are working on the inland mangrove, are both a little bit worried about the effects on that, but are also excited and kind of like happy of having the train coming here, because that means more attention from the federal government, from the state government, and more, it's kind of like weird to say that with the influence of the people coming here, the tourism coming here, this can be protected. So it's basically what we do in natural habitat. We go to natural places as tourists, as visitors, but we protect the area. We behave, let's say. So that's what people in this area, researchers and local people in this area, is looking for. In other places, let's say Chichen Itza or these other touristic areas that are already settled, they just see it as something extra, like it will bring more people, something different, a different attraction. But in places like this that don't really rely on tourism for survival or for the main income, they do see this as something good in general terms. So of course there are some things that can be done better, some areas to opportunity areas, and one of those is specifically, let's say, the conservation of these areas where the Mayan train is going to pass by. So talking, let's say, specifically about these places, the Tenosique, Balancan, San Pedro River mangroves, they are hoping for the best and expecting the best of the Mayan train passing by this area.
Great, thank you for addressing that. So, does NatHab run trips to any of these beautiful areas?
Not yet. Hopefully we can have something. It's kind of difficult though to the facilities on some places, but for example, we used to have a trip running out from Holbox to see the whale sharks. But due to the near area of Cancun and Isla Mujeres and all these heavily active in terms of tourism areas, the trip is not eco-friendly anymore. So we are just checking what to do on that. Maybe we're having a whale shark in La Paz, but I don't know. We're still seeing. But no, nowadays we are just checking what can be done in this area because it's a very interesting place. So it's very important in terms, as you saw, in terms of culture and biodiversity. So if we have any trip to this area, for sure, we'll let you know.
Great, thank you, Melissa. Unfortunately, that's going to be the last question that we do have time for today. So I'm going to throw it back to you for some closing comments.
Okay, perfect. So, well, I just wanted to thank you all for being here. There's always more to see, more to explore in Mexico, and just be attentive on the next webinars of these topics. And well, as you see, just keep on checking on Natural Habitat Adventures and what they have to offer you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. If you're interested in information on how you can travel with NatHab, give us a call at the number on your screen or send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.